to protect and save them because they failed to lead, they failed to show leadership, they failed to tell them the truth, they failed to caution them that in this country there are laws. You can't just up and go anywhere just because your party has won an election and therefore terrorize and take over private setups as though they were yours.
So you heard Otumfuo 82, and you also heard Otumfuo 82 the second, and you also heard the NPP's communications director, the Richard Ahiagba. They held a press conference and put the blame squarely at the doorstep of the NDC. I'm sure some of you may have also seen some videos ahead of the elections, a gathering that was an NDC gathering, that the supporters appear to be preparing. That's what they were doing, preparing to, you know, get into galamsey work if their party won power. You know, there's this video also that is popped up, we're told is 2023, where a journalist was also boldly encouraging the youth in that town to besiege the place and mine. Well, what exactly is going on? A good friend of mine says that in 2006, I visited Anglo-Gold, Obuasi, upon an official invitation. I spent almost a day underground. I was told harrowing encounters between staff of Anglo-Gold and illegal miners. It's been several years since. I doubt these encounters will ever end. Why am I reading this message? To give you a glimpse or a reminder of these encounters that have been happening at this place for a long time. In fact, Anglo-Gold has lost officials who have been shot and killed at these places before. So let's get into that. And before that, some of the messages you have sent earlier. Christopher Clover, you say that Mr. David should tell us, you mean Frank Davis, should tell us what the ECOWAS has done for African countries aside from aligning itself strategically with the colonial master's idea. We cannot expect a flamboyant democracy when we use it to dupe the citizens. Let's get serious for once, please. Yesu Holik says that the NPP is merely attacking the government for chaos they have caused instead of genuinely winning the hearts of Ghanaians, With each passing moment, they only deepen their own predicament. K. Amofa says, what is wrong with a military leader of another country attending the inauguration in Ghana, ignoring the effect of Burkina Faso being our neighbor? This is much ado about nothing. Gasma says, Afenyo Markin's advice isn't coming from a good place because he didn't extend same to Baumia. It's tainted with malice. It is meant to cause public anger or disaffection towards the government. I'm glad they have treated it with contempt. Afenyo Markin asked the president to apologize and appoint more because 60 is not enough. Then Harisu Lamino Pandit says, great appointments from the president. Very youthful, highly professional in their fields of work and timely. The appointment committee has also done a good job, irrespective of the challenges. Okay, thanks for those messages. Now, let's hear from our guest on the matter of Obuasi. Maybe I start with you, Oliver, because of your association with getting to the ground and organizing support for people who have been brutalized, the Ashaman situation and all of that. How do you process what we are being told about what happened in Obuasi?
I mean, there's clearly a lot of misinformation, unclear information regarding the incidents that happened that led to the loss of lives there. My consistent advocacy is that where any individual loses their lives at the hand of the state, that it is investigated. In many countries, when whether it's an officer of the law is involved in a shooting incident that kills an individual, immediately they are suspended for an investigation to establish how the person died. And I hope that happens. So we don't rely on just press statements. We have seen that go tragically wrong in the case of Asawase when individuals are claimed to be armed robbers. So we must institutionalize the practice.
And it turned out to be untrue. That
turned out to be
armed
untrue.
robbers, yeah.
So we must institutionalize the practice if Ghanaian lives mean anything to us. The problem of Obuasi didn't start today, as one of your commenters mentioned. There's an interesting and fascinating article, actually, by one Godfred Apia Oko, which is on grievance and conflicts in Obuasi, on Ghana's gold mining industry, the case of Obuasi. The catalogs from 1990 till now, the number of clashes that have happened between the mines and individuals and with the military involved and people dying. There's a bigger question around community participation rights within the governance of our natural resources that we can't, at every time, isolate these incidents when they happen and say, okay, the individuals armed themselves and went there, and then some died, some people were shot, then we have misinformation on that. There's an original sin that we need to address regarding the community's feelings that they ought to have certain participation rights in resources that are mined in their backyard, and how we balance that as a democracy. The constitutional framework we have that vests everything in the state, and then we issue licenses in Accra without great consideration of the people there, and in terms of the administration of the resources, there's no clear pathway to how the communities are benefited. In fact, a lot of the times all you hear is that these companies must perform CSR. We cannot leave it to the private discretion of companies how we set people's entitlement rights or community rights within a natural resources governance system. So I think we need to have a holistic conversation to be able to ensure that we are thinking as a nation long term that these claims and entitlements will not stop here. It happened when the oil was discovered in the Western region. These conversations have come up, and we have examples across the African terrain, whether in Nigeria with the Ogoni and other places, where, in the Delta State, for instance, where it always breeds entitlement. And how you balance that determines whether or not we resolve the conflict. When we're looking for how to structure our oil revenue, we went to Norway and took the Norwegian model, but we should have also talked about the African experiences and how that we can redefine those models to be able to address community needs better. Now here, one of my biggest concerns in terms of how conflict and things happen in this country, it's always the hand of political parties in the conversation. Whether they do so in giving, certain individuals are given a certain assurances that when government change, they can be able to do certain things or not. It has happened in how we weaponize ethnicity, and we must be careful how we weaponize long-term community grievances in order for power. If that's what has happened here, again, it is something that is systemic and endemic. So for me, I want to focus on the larger issues on how we prevent these things from happening again and again. But in this case, and I've talked about the governments have said they want to conduct an investigation. That investigation is necessary for us to unravel the full facts of how they got in there. Now, yes, from a legal and a legalistic point of view, individuals presumably armed themselves, from what some of the accounts are claiming, and went there. We have talked about proliferation of small arms. So there's so many different connected aspects of the problem that we must be able to think about again in terms of arming of illegal miners. We saw these things happen when Erastus was assaulted, that there's a lot of cartelization that is happening within the small scale and mining industry that we ought to be alarmed by. So we are seeing an incident here. There's claims that some of the individuals involved are people who have been emboldened by what you call the takeover culture and things like that is happening. That also has to be addressed. But then the underlying issue of the bigger community and continuous impoverishment has to also be addressed, and how their interests are balanced. We tried it with the local content laws and saying that we want to be able to bring that. But those are after the fact thinking when the framework has already been set somewhere. So that's my take on Obuasi, and I hope that we get to the bottom of it.
Suleimana, what would be how you process what is going on there? We were told about 9 lives were lost, 9 people were killed, and 4 have been in critical condition. Richard Anyagba, in his press conference, was talking about 11 people who were dead or so. long term too, how can we look at this? People have asked the question. This is the place where the gold mineral wealth is, but they are the most impoverished. Go and look at the structures they live in, the air they breathe, the water they drink.
It's certainly a very unfortunate development. These things shouldn't happen. Commiserations to the families that have lost their relatives, really, really painful. But I think these things happen as a result of, how our politics has been structured. Over the years, it's become a matter of your party is in power and it's your time to benefit. And it's not just at the grassroots, it goes all the way from the community level, district level, regional level to national level. And we were talking about even ministerial appointments and how, people are setting party offices ablaze because they are claiming the persons they support or their MPs have not been appointed and so on. So it's this whole sense of entitlement and the fact that during the campaigning, we also, or the politicians or political leaders, end up also giving some assurances, sometimes very unrealistic from the legal and practical side of things. But because of, the crave for voting, certain promises are made. I think this has happened. As Otunfo said, we are not in the banana republic. We are a country governed by laws, or at least a country that must be governed by laws, because sometimes, depending on who is at fault, the law may be working quite differently. But that leads me to this whole point about resetting Ghana that the president talks about. I honestly think that resetting Ghana really is not about just saying that we've reduced the number of ministers, we are urging ministers to be respectful, declare your assets, and all of that. I think to a large extent, it's about reorienting people in terms of mindset, in terms of values, and secondly, making sure that the laws work in a way that is fair, that is just, that is equitable. And therefore, it doesn't matter that it is an NDC president who is in power. If you're an MPP member and you do something that is against the law must work. That's the only way we are going to be able to reset the country, if indeed we would be able to reset the country.
We had one of the eyewitnesses who said they were there, they knelt down, which account is also being contested, say that all they went there was to get their daily bread. He spoke in Twi. He said they didn't go there to cause any trouble. And in any case, this was an abandoned pit. So what's the problem? He doesn't see any issue.
Well, I think we have to contrast that with what you read a while ago, and also the statement that was issued by the Ghana Armed Forces. I don't think it would be fair to discount the contrary accounts being presented. And that, for me, is why sometimes I have a problem with our media. Why would it be that at this stage, almost a week or more into this incident, we are discussing this issue relying on what people are saying and all of that, rather than media people who have gone to the field and have had interviews with as many people as possible, interview the Ghana Armed Forces to back their claims with evidence, interview the leadership at the district, leadership at Anglo Gold, and all of that. I think we are missing a lot in terms of what the media must be doing. But it takes me back to the whole issue of resetting Ghana. I think, what the Director of Communications for the MPP is saying is basically, as usual, the politics of things. I can understand from the opposition. That is what must be done. But to some extent, I think their government did a lot of damage. Not to some extent. In fact, a lot of damage was done. If you even look at the statistics that has been put out by multimedia, for example, and the number of concessions or licenses that have been issued, from the Rawlings era, you look at it, and it's 2,127, and out of this, the 8 years of President Akufo-Addo is over 2,000 of them, 2,037. Whereas others issued 24, the Rawlings Kufuor did 14, Mills did 7 before his death, and Mahama did 44. So if you put the Mills, Mahama 8 years together, it comes to 51. And then in the last 8 years of Akufo-Addo, 2,037. Yes, it's okay to give licenses to people to work, but who were the beneficiaries of these licenses or permits to go into the field and work? And we saw the consequences. Water bodies that have been polluted, party executives that were in mining. We read the Frimpong Boateng report that eventually got him kicked out of government, and so on. And so I think to some extent people felt, well, when the NPP was there people were all over, in fact, destroying our environment, destroying water bodies, nothing happened. And therefore, if our party is in power, it means that we can also do whatever we want. If people could cause such significant damage and nothing happened, why not us? But like I said, resetting Ghana means doing things differently, taking the painful decisions, taking the decisions that will make your party and party supporters unhappy and unpopular.
Forgive me, but I don't get the point of your bringing in the issuance of mining licenses by President within Akufo-Addo's time, as in between January 1 and January 6, where 106 were issued, or the more that had been issued earlier. I didn't get the point how that comes in this discussion. You don't buy the explanation by the Minerals Commission that this is the way to resolve the Galamsey issue. You give out licenses and so that you are able to regulate those who are mining.
Well, Samson, I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but is that what we saw? The Fourth Estate, for example, did an investigation into who are the beneficiaries of these licenses and who were they? Party executives, party chairmen, persons at the presidency, sons and daughters of the chief of staff, and so on and so forth. And the people in the communities see the persons who are mining. They are associates. They live in the same community, and they know that, Kofi Mensah is MPP, and today he's mining here, and nothing is happening. Operation Galam stop, whatever is happening, they are still doing it. They are polluting the water bodies, but because they are MPP, we are them.
You are not in any way suggesting that there's a justification for the conduct of these Galamseyers at the Obuasi pit. Absolutely
not. But the point I am making is that why would these people have thought this way? They're thinking that, others did it, and so if others did it and nothing happened.
No, when you are giving a license to mine, you have acquired a license. That is not illegal mining. So how can that be used as the example?
No, Samson, but we are talking about mining that was happening illegally all over. Why did the government set up Operation Galam Stop, Operation This? You go to a place around Ashalibutre and you see all those excavators that have been parked there. If these people were doing illegal mining, why would the government take those steps? Why were the military in the bushes burning and so on and so forth? So a lot of illegal mining was happening. People live with people in communities and they think, others are doing it and it's our turn to do it. But I'm saying this is absolutely a no-no. We are not in a banana republic. I last week put out a tweet saying that in the mining sector, I think it's a sector that requires an immediate presidential action. By now, I think it would have been great for the president to have come out quite clearly on what steps are to be taken on the mining sector to avert some of these things that are happening and to restore our water bodies and our environment. But so far, nothing has happened. And I believe that it's time for the president to really come out and make it clear that, look, the laws are going to be enforced. We are Ghanaians. We must benefit from our natural resource endowment, but we must do so in a way that will not destroy the environment. We must do so legally. We must do so in ways that respect the rights of other people. Other than that, the pattern is going to continue. The NDC folks will think, look, the MPP people enrich themselves through illegal mining. Why wouldn't we do it ourselves also? But as I said, resetting Ghana means taking all the painful decisions, all the things that may make the party unhappy, the party people unhappy, but would be in the national interest. And I think that is what has to happen. What happened is unfortunate, but the laws must be enforced.
Do you believe the narrative, just in a second, some 30 seconds, the narrative that the galamseyers were the ones who went and began to shoot at the armed military officials to attract they also being shot and killed?
What I may be tempted to believe is the fact that they may have succeeded in breaching the first line of security, which would have been the internal company security folks who are often not armed.
Okay.
And therefore, numbers they could have overcome them. But I don't think that any group of Ghanaians would dare see military people and be the first to open fire on the military people. That's really unbelievable.
And what you see, the map you see there, as I understand it, the pink area that you see is the Anglo-Gold Ashanti operating area for now. And then the outside of it, outside of the pink marking, is the ceded concessions that we heard Otumfuo Osei-Tutu speak about a while ago. All right. Let's me now bring in Frank Davis. I'm sure that you, of course, the discussion, it is said that you don't bring in the party stuff, but where there is evidence of some of that, should we be oblivious to that? Richard Anyagba spoke, and for some of us who have seen some of the footages ahead of the election, I think on the eve of elections or so, the gathering of the NDC supporters and the comments that they were making about how they would have to take over places. And I've also referenced to the comments that were made by Captain Smart, I'm told this a year ago, where he invited the townsfolk to besiege the place and mine because they are being starved and so on. All of that can reasonably be linked to what emboldened these people to go there to do what they did.
Yes, Samson. In the first place, let me express my deepest condolences and regrets to the bereaved families. No matter what it is, the loss of a human life is something which is irreplaceable. So when lives are lost in such rather unusual and awkward manner, I think we all have to commiserate and wish that the family finds the strength in these difficult and challenging times. Well, having said that, something, you see, most often than not, we allow irresponsible utterances.
Frank David, just a minute. And the video you are seeing there is what I was talking about. This is a gathering of NDC supporters. And you should hear some of the things they were saying just before the elections, right? And so it's not difficult to connect it to what is happening. Yes, go on.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You see, when we link everything to political mantra, and then people try to hide under these things to perpetuate mayhem and possibly cause loss of death, as has happened in this particular situation, I don't think we should gloss over it and say it is politics as usual. I will condemn it if it's my party. Something, you know me too well. You know me too well for my stance on some of these things. I will condemn it if it's my party. And I'll condemn it if it's otherwise, it's vice versa. You see, when you promise people that when you take over government, you are going to legalize and give them the opportunity to work in the mines, what and how do you mean? And that you goad them on that they should vote for you. And you see, and then your government wins power and they are not seeing the jobs. What do you expect them to do? This is the situation you put them in. And a journalist who I'm told is so famed, the Captain Smart or whatever his name is, who I'm told is so famed. I don't want to ascribe to the political leanings people associate him with. It is not my business. Whether he's NPP or NDC is immaterial to the discussion. But this is a famed, so-called famed journalist. And he mounts his platform and then encourages people. I have listened to the language he used. What is that supposed to mean? Where is he now? Where is that so-called Captain Smart? Now the people have been murdered, whether callously, rightfully or wrong, they have been murdered or killed. They are dead. Where is he? And we are looking on. Nobody say anything. Nobody has called him to order. He has not been invited to any forum. He's just there. And I'm sure he will go on spewing the kind of journalistic nonsense he goes about with.
In fact, he says that he said this in 2023, so we shouldn't link it to it.
Oh, come on, something, come on. He said it in 2023, and so what? He said it in 2023, and so that is so irresponsible and childish for a journalist to be saying that. Yes, you said it in 2023, but the election was won in 2024. So they are accurating what you said. He should bow down his ugly head in shame. You see, they do these things, and this is the leeway. And because he has said this, people are quiet. Some say it is about time. It's about time that we stand and leave our mettle. When people do things wrong, they should be held by the head and thrown into jail. This cannot be journalism. And you see, political leaders, I've listened to some excerpts of utterances and speeches that have come out immediately after. And I mean, for God's sakes, the national organizer of the NDC, Yamin or whatever his name is, he should tone down. You see, on some of these bravado acts of show bravado, he should tone down. You see, because we are in very difficult times. If the situation is not managed well, it will turn into something else. And I'll beg, Samson, your crop of journalists, I'll beg, if there is a situation, we should all be responsible. Say it as it is, and damn the consequences. You see, when a particular group of journalists try to portray a situation that these people went to the mines, they just went and said, "Oh, we are coming to mine," and they were shot. I mean, something it begs reasoning. You see, because other group of journalists have also come with concise details and a narrative of what actually happened. Let me borrow the words of Otumfuo, the great king. Now, there is a concession. Something I heard you say in passing, and maybe you said it in jest. Even if that concession is on mine for the time being, even if it's on mine for the time being, somebody has a legal concession.
It's actually barricaded. There's a fence wall over it. They had to cut the fence wall to get in. Lawfully
and regularly licensed. And then you get up in the community. When the license was being granted, where were you? You get up in the community and claim that you have to eat. So you enter somebody's concession without his license, permission, authority, nothing. And you think you want to go and mine. And then when you suffer this fate, it becomes a problem for that company. Something. I mean, it's about time we look at these things constructively.
Okay.
Take out the political lenses and say it as it is.
All right.
It is irresponsible by all standards. I'm sorry for what has happened. But you see, Ghanaians should learn to be law-abiding.
All right.
This rascality should cease. And you see, there has never been an occasion where a change from one democratically elected government to the other has translated into a coup d'etat. Never.
Okay.
This is what we are seeing.
Thank you, Frank Davis. And Inus of Seni, before I go to Bashira to Kamal, Frank Davis mentions a point that personally I'm concerned about. We talk about media freedoms, but we know that there's something happening on the airwaves that actually jeopardize the media freedoms. And these are being perpetrated by people in the name of journalism, and those who are also operating because of some virtual jurisdictional issues. They are not around, so they know they may not be able to be touched, who are involved in this violent insult fest, just churning out unverified information and actually encouraging people to attack people on live programs. It doesn't matter that there's a caliber of people who want to listen and watch them. It's not useful, and it might get us into trouble. What do you say?
Well, I think that everybody, where you are within the jurisdiction or outside the jurisdiction, if you have a platform to educate people, you have a duty to behave responsibly. That duty should manifest in the respect of others, the respect for the views of other people, and the fact that you are communicating to change perception, to change attitudes. And so if you fail in that, then you are failing in your journalistic training. I mean, all of us have a responsibility to act reasonably and responsibly. And so, yes, any journalist who calls on people, and I say that you need to read Hotel Rwanda, understand how it started, to understand how a callous utterance from a journalist can burn a country.
You know, many talk about that, but they don't read
and there are many
the literature on that.
Books on Rwanda, many.
Yeah.
And that started through radio discussion. Rwanda didn't go to war and kill each other and try to annihilate one section of the community because politicians sat down. Politicians sat down to discuss how to overthrow Habemani or what? Yeah. That president. That was the discussion.
So
let's come. I think that I still have my moral compass on. And I'll try to talk and speak dispassionately about Galamsey. We need to understand that illegal mining cannot be allowed to go on in this country. If we allow it, we are being irresponsible as a people, because it represents an existential threat to this country. Go to the mining communities. See the number of children who are brought forth deformed. The number of pregnant women who are losing their pregnancies. And then you will understand what we are talking about. Now go and look at the degradation of the environment. Look at the pollution of the water bodies. Understand and study the insecurity at those areas. And you will ask yourself, how can we allow this to go on? In 1989, and I visited Obuasi as a minister for lands and natural resources.
You have told us here how your very life was in danger for seeking to enforce the laws.
Yeah, so I had to hang a camera in my office. But I deactivated it when I was leaving. It became an issue when Akufo-Addo won.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because people actually told me that my life was in danger. And I wanted to know anybody coming to my office must be recorded. Because you will know when you come into the office, you close the door. So you don't know who is coming in to harm you. And so if they succeed in harming me, in killing me, at least the camera will reveal who did it. But politics entered. And then we must take politics out of it. Look, you sit in the crowd, you think you are far insulated. You are insulated against the ravages of Galamsey.
No, it's right here.
It's right here. The oranges that you drink.
We cross the borders. We have had experts tell us about that.
The oranges that you drink, if they come from Galamsey size, you know that the hard metals that are in it, the banana that you eat. I mean, let's be real. It's a no-no. Yes, even when I was at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, we had said that concessionaires who had fallow land could give those fallow lands to legal small-scale miners and Baker. In fact, there is participation rights. It's the impunity that we condemn and abhor. But there's participation. See, because the Galamseyers, until they started introducing heavy machinery, we're only mining surfacely. And so if you are going to do surface mining, well, you don't. The concession holders can still do underground mining because you can't get there. But in Obuasi, people dug tunnels and connected with the shafts. And I went there and saw it myself. Mm-hmm. It's not about politics. The people who went there, it's unfortunate that they were killed. And I have another concern. We have said as a country that we cannot justify the participation of state institutional mechanisms or agencies in the protection of private property. And so if we give a concession to a concessionaire, that concessionaire has a duty to obtain his license to operate by a combination of things that he will do. Will he identify the small-scale miners in that area, partition part of his land, and get them onto the concession and ensure that they mine in accordance with acceptable practices and not destroy the environment? That he becomes a good citizen of the community, and that the community will elect to protect. What do they do? Do they just go there because they think that they have got the concession and they mine and exclude everybody? Or what do they do? So they must purchase their license to operate. So how come that the military, and Captain Mohammed's or Major Mohammed's case is a case in point. How come that the military were there and they opened fire? Was there no other way to contain the people who were charging onto the land?
If the story about they breaching the first layer of private security, breaching the second layer of police, and then, as it were, confronting the military is anything to go by. And remember that early in 2016, this abandoned sites is the same venue or area where the Anglo Gold lost their corporate affairs manager. He was killed in one such confrontation with the illegal miners. So they would have prepared and ensured that their security there is tight.
Yes, so the first layer, if it's true that there was a first layer, among the first layer of resistance, how many people died from Anglo Gold? The second layer of resistance, the police, how many people died?
Okay.
How come that it was only the third layer that resulted in deaths? So there are questions. That's why I support His Excellency John Mohammed's directive for the matter to be investigated.
Okay.
It's a standard, a universal standard.
Right.
That when people bearing arms, when they use the arms, whether legally or illegally, we need to understand the circumstances that led to the use of
the media's role in projecting the vitriol and suggesting that the people have been deprived of their resources. The locals have been deprived of their resources, and therefore they can go there and make, a living. How do we treat that also in the midst of what does the media regulators do? The NMC, the National Media Commission, what has he been doing? Has the Media Commission been aware of these inflammatory comments that are capable of inspiring this kind of situation over the period? George Sapong is the Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission. Thanks for joining us, sir. We just lost George Sapong. He should join us shortly. When he does, we'll bring him on.
Even before George comes in, if I hear media saying that the property is yours, go attack the property. Just like saying, go attack the offices, because this is public property. Public property. Now, when that attack on public property is ended, where do you think they go? So is the media saying that when matters come to worse and push comes to shove, they will justify armed robbery?
Okay.
Because buying gold without permit,
okay,
it's like stealing. It's akin to stealing.
Thank you. Mr. Josapon, we're asking what you have been doing because you are responsible for regulating.
Thank you very much, Thompson. And let me acknowledge the brilliance of the panelists and the commitment they brought to those discussions. I particularly heard the passionate comments of Senior Pan Davis on the issue of media responsibility in the issue. I have two quick comments. Number one is directly on your question of what has the NMC been doing. With respect to the particular presenter in issue, we have issued a number of warnings to the station. First, this is the same presenter who said that the Western Regional Minister, he spoke chief. He made statements implying that the Western Regional Minister is stupid, like a northern politician. We cautioned him, cautioned the station. The management said they saw nothing wrong with what he was doing. It is the same presenter who wished that Nana Otuo Srebo would be killed, chairman of the Council of State. We cautioned management of the station once again. They said they saw nothing wrong with what he was doing. It is the same presenter who called the Chief of Defense Staff and the generals of the Ghana Armed Forces beast. He's the same presenter who insulted the chiefs and people of Turkey to the point that they had to perform rituals to declare him persona non grata. The management of the station said they see nothing wrong with all these issues. So we stepped the matter up to the board and said, if management is thinking at the level of the presenter, they would be unable to deal with this problem. We believe that the board will bring something higher to this. And we really want to encourage all of you to look at the kinds of people on the board. Samson, the board wrote back to say that they also endorse the behavior of the presenter and they see nothing wrong with it. This is at the point at which we filed a notice of revocation against the station with the National Communications Authority. So with respect to this particular presenter, this is the chronology of events. I want to make a quick comment on his defense that he made the comment about a year ago. That is a pitiful display of ignorance. So this is a presenter who doesn't even have the most basic understanding of media effects and how it operates. He does not understand how media content operates on the public mind. But once we talk about this presenter, we also need to have the same courage that Senator Frank Davis, yourself, and the others display in saying that he is only a villain puppet. The problem is with the mind that...
Oh, we lost Josh Sapong again. When we get Josh Sapong, he was wrapping up, so we get him and get that done, and then we'll move on. Bashiratu, what do you say? You are involved in labor matters. You are involved with grassroots and dealing with people. What do you think, from what you have heard so far and seen, has happened in Obuasi, and how do we go about resolving it?
My Samson. First, let me say that.
Bashiratu, hold on. Let's finish with George Sapong. George Sapong was wrapping up. Hello, yes. Mr. Sapong.
So, Samson, the point I was seeking to make is that we need to see what this presenter is doing within its context. He is only a puppet player. Those who are holding the strings controlling him also need to be brought to order. As far as the National Media Commission is concerned, this was the idea LIT for the Content Standards Electronic Communication. And we strongly believe that all of us need to revisit it. I heard you raise the question of jurisdiction, and I knew that you were seeking to educate the public. Let all those who sit outside and send in wrongful content understand that you do not avoid liability by standing at Aflao and throwing bomb into Togo and claiming that there are no jurisdictional matters in there. It is the same thing that applies to media content. Where you sit to do the act may not matter. The society that you impact may well be where you be held liable.
Yeah, but the thing is that they take safety in the fact that they are not in your country. You can't get them. That's what I mean. For those who are operating virtually.
And you are right. But I think we need to deal with three things and help them to understand that they will not avoid liability for long. The enforcement challenges are completely different from the questions of liability, and they need to learn them.
Okay. George Sapon, thank you very much for your time.
God bless you. Bro.
Right. Bashiratu, let's hear you. Hello, Bashiratu.
Yes, Samson, thank you. I want to start with a comment that nothing can justify what has happened in Obuasi, either on the part of the citizens and on the part of the police. Now, there's an issue of whether Anglo Gold has a right to be there, and the discussion around, even if I have a right to eat and I have a right to survive, who is responsible?
Oh, what just happened to her line? But Bashiratu, we have a difficulty with your internet. It looks like it's frozen, but you are beginning to make an important point. But Honorable Minister, do you know if there is any question as to whether Anglo Gold, any question as to their right to be on those properties?
Yeah, that's their property. They've occupied the property since they bought it from the. The property was transferred to them, and so that's their property, and everybody knows that that's their property. What is fueling the Galamsey activities is the price of gold. Okay, that people are seeing that you can easily make money by going to dig up the ground, collect some samples, grind them, use mercury to extract the gold, and go and sell. And people are very callous, even in their handling of mercury. I mean, when I visited there, I saw a small boy put the mercury bottle in the mouth, trying to open it by the teeth. You know, very, very, I mean, you can imagine that this is what is happening. And you see, the moral hazards. We are not even looking at the moral hazards. Look, these people are despoiling the environment, and then we are going to use resources that we have used in developing other areas to go and clean up their mess.
But you know, there's the bigger question that people like Oliver will ask you guys. You are the government, and you are the one who has given the concessions out. Meanwhile, these communities are the poorest of the poor, and they are visited by all sorts of disease. What is happening? So that's why sometimes they get up and they listen to voices like we have been, condemning, to do what they are doing. Frank Davis, do you sense the frustration in the voice of Mr. George Sapong to your concern, because they have issued caution upon caution and nothing seems to happen?
You see, Samson, I surely can see his clear frustrations. You see, but I don't think it should end there. You see, what is the difficulty being encountered in having this media station or broadcast shut down? What is the challenge? Because if the board of that media outlet, I don't know what the constitution of the board is, which people are on that board, but if a board of such a media outlet can justify, rightfully so to speak, that the comments, utterances, and the kind of irresponsibility exhibited by these journalists can stand the test of time, then I don't know what is happening in Ghana. I don't know what the Ghana Institute of Journalism itself is doing.
Should we do something about the law that NMC works with so that it can empower them to do beyond this persuasive approach that they do?
Something, exactly. That is the only way, something. We can streamline the content of journalism in this country. Because something, I must say, with greater respect to you, you are also a trained journalist and a trained lawyer to boot. I must say, we do difference. And humility. The kind of journalism being turned around these days, that people say anything and everything in the name of journalistic content. I think it's so appalling. And sometimes when you listen to them, your jaw just breaks, because some of us, in the limited constraints of our age, came to meet journalists par excellence in this country. Journalists who just can't come on radio to talk. They investigate, they analyze, they critique, and you listen to them with joy.
Okay.
Something, I am not humoring you, but you for one. How dare you, something, come and sit on radio and say something which is irresponsible? I mean, how dare you? Can you even justify this to your wife or to your children? You see, that is the focus we should all have. Sitting down here and talking on your media outlet. The whole of this international, Ghana and the international community is listening to me. Something I owe it to myself and to posterity, that any time I come to the radio station, the television outlet, or on any show, I try as much as possible to represent what is the truth and what is factual.
All right.
If I err, let me err on the side of caution.
Thank you,
let
Frank.
me err on the side of lack of knowledge.
Thank you.
Not let me err on irresponsible utterances.
Thank you, Frank Davis. Bashira, you have the last say on this matter. You were making your point, yes.
Thank you, Samson. So I was saying that nothing can justify what has happened, and we have to condemn it outrightly, devoid of affiliation or devoid of interest. If we do not behave in such manner, we are going to end up having a reoccurrence of this, because people know that instead of putting the national interest ahead, we are always going to put our personal and selfish interest ahead. Now, a few points I want to make about the issue of Obuasi is that, one, we tend to forget about discussing the workers at AngloGold, that they also have a right to eat. They also have every right that these other citizens have and the community have. AngloGold did not just come to Ghana and start mining. They had a license. Who gave them the license? So as much as you want to blame AngloGold, we also have to put the blame on the doorstep of anyone who is also responsible, whether visibly or invisibly. If you attack AngloGold, remember you are not just putting your own life at risk, but you are putting a lot of people's life at risk as well. As we speak, schools have been closed. Definitely, if there is a market around that place, people may not be able to access that market. Secondly, you mentioned that the corporate affairs manager died past some time ago due to a similar clash. For how long are we going to look on for some of these things? For some of these things to go on. Secondly, the issue about Oliver mentioned about corporate social responsibility. We have consistently reminded companies and insisted that instead of just doing corporate social responsibility, we should look at it from a broader spectrum of what we call worker and community-driven corporate social responsibility. If you leave corporation, they will leave it to doing their PR thing, things that make them look good in the eyes of the public, rather than things that actually respond to direct needs of citizens. The third thing I want to say is that what are the role of our traditional leaders? In December, I was on my way to the field in Sunyane, and there is this new mining company that is coming up somewhere on the road. When I was asking questions, I was told that the mining company went with the chief to talk about development and other things. And some of them actually requested is it B8 and houses and all of that. Remember, when it explodes, these guys always have a way to protect themselves and what is very dear to them and leave the rest of the people there. So as we are speaking about the role of government officials and of everybody, we should not forget the role our traditional authorities play. The last point I'll make is that, like you said, I work with the labor unions, AGREC specifically. As we speak, beyond cocoa farmers facing forced eviction because of the activities of Galamsey, Samson, you will not believe that multinational companies in the oil palm sector have faced issues with illegal miners, encroaching into oil palm plantation in some of the areas in the Western region. For how long can we wait to have these things consistently happen we are talking about job creation, and people are going to end up losing their jobs because of these things. My work with the women in mining Ghana, we went to the field in some areas to work. The comment that was made about the child using mercury in a certain way, we did witness women finding in, for them, they don't use the water bodies, but they dredge their own wells to do the washing and processing in. They will stand in, no Wellington, but nothing. Secondly, they keep mercury under their beds and some in their kitchen. They use their feet to actually cut through in the course of processing. I mean, the situation is very scary. And these activities do not only just affect the community and the individual, but we are going to have an issue where a lot of men are even going to suffer impotence because of the occupational safety and health implication related to some of these things that are being done. It is a high time we take the bull by the horn, devoid of political affiliation and opposition, and put the national interest at heart. If we do not deal with this situation, we might run into more serious issues as a country, and it will be difficult to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bashira, too. And as there was a reference to Asawase, I'm receiving messages from people in Asawase, and they are asking that, this one says that we, the families of Zongo 7 at Asawase, are planning a court action against the government over non-prosecution of the police officers, as announced by the president when he met us at the Georgia Hotel in 2019. And that is true, that is factual. There was a promise to prosecute the police officers who were caught lying, barefaced lie, that those people had arms, when the arms had been gathered from somewhere and displayed as those people who had, used them. I'm bringing Suleimana because he wants to say something quickly in a minute. But before he does that, and then we go to our constitutional matter and the committee set up by the president, listen to this bit of this video that I've been talking about. Those of you who have started your party political attacks, I'm used to this. I've done this for how many years? MPP has just lost power. Just watch. It won't be long. You see them. There are people who are accusing me. You see them very happy around me, around this table. So it was a factual issue I was talking about. Ahead of the elections or thereabout, this happened. And it's a meeting of NDC people. And listen to part of what they said.
The state of what's coming from the show. Yes, so may I have to say the money again? You're back one number. Nothing, you're living in some shit. Yes, everybody in the me as a political organizer, I was going to be down. Yeah, we will vote now. You will send a papa now. Not a cat in the memory, so we will check the letter. Yes, I'm
All right, so I'll not interpret. Those of you who understand Chi, good for you, enjoy it. This is a party organizer, women organizer constituency, and you hear her talk about how there's power that is coming, and when that power comes, it ought to be used to protect the galamseyers, and how they will seek to distribute, some sort of concessions for their benefit. Who tells them that galamsey is right, and that a party wins power must protect you to do it, and so on? Yes, Sule, 1 minute. What's your reaction?
Samson, thank you. I just wanted to touch on the media issue and how dangerous some of these things can be. And reference to the actions of Captain Smart on Onua TV, Onua FM. I think George has mentioned some of the actions that were taken, but I just wanted to also say that the actions of the NMC in this case, actually, the NMC went far. You know, I've always been somebody who criticizes the NMC for inaction, but in this case. We request that you take down the frequency of this particular station. And then at that point, the management of the station then decided to go to court to seek injunction against any action. And the NMC wrote to the Advertisers Association about its intention to get NCA to take down the frequency. Again, at this point, the Ghana Independent Association took issue with the actions of the NMC and criticized the NMC for not allowing the media organization to have, a fair hearing or whatever they were referring to. But the point is, if the NMC had repeatedly written to the management of the station, and the station is saying, well, we are okay with what the person is doing, what fair hearing was Giver talking about? And I think that it is important. You remember the Mutie trade. The Supreme Court then said, look, the managers and the board of the organization should also be held responsible and required of them to present policies and documents of the station. This station, as George was talking about, we have reputable people on the board. In fact, the board is chaired by no less a person than Mr. Kojo Yanka. And Mr. Kojo Yanka is somebody that we all revere. We've all learned under him before. He's been an editor. He's been the director of Ghana Journalists Association. He's been a minister before. He has a journalism school and so on. The question is this the kind of journalism that we want, people to come up and do? And so I think it is time that we really hold the management and the board of this particular station responsible before we all get ourselves into trouble with the actions of stations like Onua and Onua TV and Onua FM.
How do you do that when NMC doesn't have the power to bite?
Well, of course, reviewing and reforming the laws around the NMC to give them power to act is important. But whilst we are at that, I think that we need to also hold the leadership responsible. When you invite journalists to train them, they tell you, look, some of these things we know, it is not this, it's not that. But our managers will not allow us to do what we think is professional.
Right.
And they want us to do what will bring the numbers. And in this case, I think it is just the numbers that the board and the management of Onua FM, Onua TV have been looking at. And I'm quite, that this organization is chaired by no less a person than Mr. Kojo Yanka.
Thank you very much, Suleiman Ibrahima. And thank you also, Media Foundation for West Africa, for what you continue to do. And just recently, before the elections, you had just done one other trainings like that on how to avoid defamation and the rest to a good number of journalists. And I was there helping them as well. Thank you for what you do. Musa Abattoir in Asawase says, Samson, while condemning the invasion of state institutions during government transitions, we must also demand justice for the tragic loss of innocent lives in Obuasi. The military's unprofessional use of lethal force against unarmed civilians is unacceptable. Accountability is crucial to prevent future incidents and protect civilians' safety and rights. Right, so let's wait for the committee and hear what their findings will be. We will be right back to see what exactly is the Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh committee, Constitution Review Committee. What exactly are they going to do that will be different from the Professor Mills, Professor Albert Fiajo committee's work, the CRC's work, which gave us 1,000 pages of the biggest socio-political data that we have ever gathered in this country. A white paper was issued and he cherry-picked and decided which ones we should implement and which ones we should not. And then Parliament, so say Chairman Sabonso and his team said, you will not implement it. Professor Kweku Asare went to the Supreme Court and then it stopped the process of implementation. By the time the Supreme Court gave the go-ahead for implementation, it was too late for the Mahama administration to do so. Then Chairman Sabonso comes into government, he also sets up a constitution review consultative committee that also looked at that report as well and brought out some things to do. Now, this committee is supposed to look at these two products of these two, the reports of these two committees, and bring actionable recommendations. Is it the issue of the reports, or is the issue of lack of political will to reform our constitution? We'll be right back.